Hi, I'm Jessica, and when I'm not drinking all the coffee, watching Razorback sports, or hanging out with my family of boys, it's my passion to help elementary music teachers just like you find your unique teaching style. My goal with this podcast is to share helpful tips, strategies, and to give you the motivation you need to gain momentum in your teaching so you can continue being the music teacher rock star you already are. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's interview is with Megan Kuhar. She's a marketing technology coach and she has many titles to her name: entrepreneur, videographer, podcast producer, audio engineer, educator, and musician. She is the first ever assistant professor of music technology at Baldwin Wallace University Conservatory of Music. She teaches music majors and educators about branding, marketing, and technology for artists. She has a podcast called the Fan Finder Podcast, and she also does coaching sessions. She teaches professional musicians how to turn their social media audience into loyal fans so they can get booked and make more money online. Her unique background in music, technology, marketing, and education allow her to coach her clients into creative, beautiful, purposeful content that is authentic and built upon a foundation of a strong brand. I brought Megan on the podcast because I get a lot of questions about two different things that we're going to talk about in this episode. The first is about entrepreneurship and about marketing yourself online. Now, this can either go if you're a music teacher and you're wanting to start a side hustle, whether it's a blog, your own podcast, teacher pay teacher store, whatever it might be. Or if you are wanting to just connect with other music teachers online through social media, and maybe you're not quite sure how to do that exactly. Megan is going to help you so much in this episode with how to do that. But on top of that, if you're curious about creating a website, like I said, for your own brand, for your own content that you're creating, or if you need a website for school, she's going to talk to you about what you need on your website to have so it's easy to find things, what you need to have and not to have on your website. And then we're also going to have a conversation around teaching technology to your older students. What exactly can you do with music technology? And what exactly does music technology mean? How can you teach your kids about music technology without overwhelming yourself? So if you're curious about any of those things, then this episode is for you and it's fantastic. I cannot wait to just jump right in. So let's go ahead and do that and just pick Megan's brain about all the things. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am so excited about our guest today, Megan, and she is going to come on today and talk about marketing and entrepreneurship. And I just cannot wait for her to tell you a little bit more about her story. So Megan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. As you said, my name is Megan Kuhar, and I am a marketing technology coach for musicians. So what I do is I help musicians learn more about branding and marketing and entrepreneurship and technology in order to do those things so that they can be, better entrepreneurs and have a better online presence and just develop a loyal fan base through social media. My background is in music, of course, and audio engineering, videography, music technology. I'm also a music technology professor at Baldwin Wallace University Conservatory of Music in Ohio, and I teach every single music major that comes through our programming. So their education, therapy, composition, history, theory, performance, music theater, all sorts of majors. They all learn from me about technology like Finale, Sibelius, iMovie, but we also talk about branding and marketing, and I have them build a website and I have them learn about social media. And, by the time they kind of finish their courses with me at the end of their schooling in college, hopefully they have an understanding of what it means to be a musician and an entrepreneur, and that it's just really important to have strategy and brand and marketing behind what you're doing.
I love that because my audience is music teachers, but music teachers also a lot of them have a side gig, or they're still musicians too. a lot of music teachers were musicians before became music teachers, obviously. And so a lot of the questions I get asked, along with everything music education, is a lot about how did I build my website, or how do you become an entrepreneur, or how do you even market to other music teachers, or not even market, but connect with them online? I get asked a lot of those questions. And so I love having you on here because you are so knowledgeable about all these things. And this is what Megan talks about like every day. And
Yes.
so I guess I want to start with asking you, let's talk about website building first. So whether a music teacher is looking to start their own side gig, or even if they're just looking to create a website for their school so parents can find them and the other teachers, and like if a school district says, hey, I want you to build up your own website, do you have any advice for them about what like they need on their site? What should they not do, or any like topics related around that?
Yes, I have so much topics and advice related to that.
Awesome.
So I actually teach a professional development course in the summers for music educators about building websites. And so I've seen a few different varied experienced teachers, from the veterans to like the new teachers, all trying to build websites, not just for their classes, but also, like you said, for their own side businesses or for whatever it is that they're trying to put out there. And I think like I have two main tips, a bunch of like other little pieces of advice. But the main things that I see that happen across the board are the messaging is confusing. So you want to make sure that your website is not crowded with unimportant messaging. You want to make sure that your landing page, that your first page has the most crucial stuff and like the best way to contact you, or whatever you're trying to get the goal is. So it might not be contact you, it might be sign up for this program, or it might be fill out this form that you have to fill out, or whatever it is. But having that all right away in the very beginning and like the easiest thing to find, that's super important. So messaging is like number one tip. And then the second tip is don't try to turn yourself into a web designer, because there are so many programs out, not just programs, but there's so many platforms out there that allow you to create beautiful, simple designed websites where all you have to do is just replace information, and you don't need to put more stuff there than that's already there. So I just see so many people, it's like the snowball takes effect and they just add, and their website becomes very cluttered. So yeah, my advice is just like, don't try to be a designer, use what's already there and put your information into what's already looks beautiful, so that it's easy because it doesn't just look beautiful, it makes it easy to navigate, it makes it easy on the eyes to read and all that. So that's my second piece of advice. Yeah, messaging and designing.
I love that. There's been a few times where if it's a music education blogger or whatever else, I go to several different blogs. It doesn't have to just be music education, or websites. And, they'll say, hey, download my free whatever, or go see my blog. Well, after you spend 5 minutes on the site, like you said, if it gets too cluttered and you can't even find the tab that says blog, you're just like, oh, I give up. I don't know where this is. So it's so true. I don't think you think about that people come into your site a lot. Even if it is your students and your parents, and you're saying, come here to see what we did in class that day. Well, if they can't find the tab, I think you
get
want
more emails than
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you want to share so much information, but like you said, the more you put on there on your website, the more cluttered it can get if it's not organized well. So I like that advice a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, and just to add on to that, like, most of the time your menu can be divided into folders and like, just not having so much, because think about also a lot of your parents are going to be reading this on their cell phones, and just like making sure that it's not, that it's mobile friendly and that it's easy to read, because yeah, they're probably doing it on the go. So you don't want to, and if they can't figure it out, they're just going to email you asking for help.
that's true. That
Yeah.
is true. And another thing too, have you noticed if you're trying to put too many ads or stuff like that, like can it contribute to the loading speed too of your website as well?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean, I think you just be careful with all of that. I think like having ads on your site is fine in the beginning. You don't really need to put a lot because what you're really trying to focus on is you're trying to focus on creating quality, authentic content that has value and that is making somebody have a reason to come to your site and to find your site. I don't have any ads on my website. I'm focused more on better SEO and better messaging and just having it be a place that becomes a resource because ads don't matter if you don't have traffic. So I think it's just really important to start with making sure that you're providing value and that you're serving your audience. And that all goes along with messaging. Like messaging is still number one.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Okay, that's so good. All right, so let's shift a little bit to social media.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to music educators that want to, let's say, collaborate with other music teachers. So I don't know, let's focus mainly on Instagram because I know for me that's my favorite. So how do you, or with any social media, what advice do you have for, first of all, how do they find different music educators to connect with? What do they share on social media? Or any other tips you have around that would be awesome.
Sure. I would say finding music educators and I'll start at like very 101 level here. So hashtags are a great way to find other people to follow. There are certain hashtags that have way too much going on that you're probably not really ready to jump into. So you really want to find the hashtags that have like the right number of people posting and not necessarily just like the number that you see, like how many posts there are in that hashtag, but you want to look at the top couple of posts and see like how many likes and comments they're getting because that will tell you, is that the level of engagement that I'm getting right now or that I'm like close to getting right now? And if so, then that's probably a good place for you to hang out. So don't try and compete with the people that are getting like 6,000 likes and, however many comments. Like try to compete with people that are getting maybe 15 comments as opposed to 700. So yeah, so searching hashtags and finding people through that. An even easier way to do it is think of somebody who is your ideal follower. Maybe they already follow you and they really fit the persona of like who you want to try and find more of, and go to their following list and also their followers list and look through those people. And then when you find people that really match your ideal client, you can go to their profile, and it's not necessarily about following them and getting like a follow back because that doesn't really always work. What you're really trying to do is you're trying to kind of raise up your flag and be like, hey, I'm here. Like, check me out. So go to their account, comment on a couple of their photos, like genuine comments, not just, fire emojis, but like genuine comments, and tell them, that you like what they're doing or that, and don't even say like, check out what I'm doing. Just tell them that you like it and talk about what they're doing. And the more you kind of engage with people that are your ideal followers, the more they're going to start finding you. And I think overall, my top piece of advice, again, same with the website, it's all about providing that value and just providing that consistent, authentic, valuable content that there's like no strings attached. You're just providing awesome stuff and you're creating an environment that people want to hang out in. And, because you can comment and follow and like all you want, but if there's nothing for people to come over and see, then they're not going to hang out there.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you don't know what a bot is, I'm laughing because you'll get these comments every once in
Oh
a while.
yeah,
And it's
bot.
like,
Yeah.
this is fire, or
Yeah.
it's a comment that has nothing to do with anything you posted. And you're like,
Love this pic.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's in some random picture. You're like, why would you love that?
Or just like, I mean, you could say about any picture on the entire Instagram platform. Like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I love what you're saying about going and commenting on, look through someone who you feel like you can relate to or you have similar audiences, and comment on some of their followers' pictures and
Mhm.
or even that person's pictures, like authentic, because it is about connection. And social media, people forget sometimes that it is about being social. And it is, yes, you're wanting to attract audience. You're wanting to attract followers, but like you said, it's about serving and not just commenting just to get someone to come over to your site. You want them to be there, but it's about forming genuine relationships, and that takes time. And it's not like a quick win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like a couple of the things that I repeat a lot about Instagram, especially for musicians, is that I see so many musicians treating Instagram as if it's just a bulletin board for them to paste up their flyer about their upcoming show or about their upcoming CD or about whatever. And all they do is they just post captions that are like, show on Friday starts at 8, $5 cover. You don't want to miss it.
Mm,
Well, a piece of paper could tell me that. Like, why should I listen? There's no interaction there. There's no connection there. There's
right.
no incentive for me to actually like get up off my couch and go see it. So I think it's unfortunately more of a long game than what really people want it to be. And I think like it's just important to remember like it's not a bulletin board. It's not something that you just like kind of paste things and then ditch. Like it's really more about creating that connection and building that relationship, and it takes a while to actually work. It
Yeah.
really does, but you have to be patient.
Yeah, it's so true. And I know it's so awkward because sometimes there will be those posts that you would think they're going to be like the hit and get so much engagement and conversation. But then it's usually the ones that I'm like just kind of threw together real quick that get a lot of engagement. So you really never know. But one thing that I really do think is important that I know you have taught this is to make sure at the end of the post, you're not just leaving it, but you're asking a question. What do you think about this? Or tell me your, experience with this, or where you create an engagement question. I feel like that's so important because otherwise, a lot of times people they want to respond, but they don't really know what to say if you're just telling them something. Hey,
Yeah.
this week I did this, and then they're like, well, that's great, or they're like nodding, but then they're like, well, I don't know how to have a conversation around that. So do you suggest that to make sure you ask an engagement question or something like that to make sure you get engagement with that post?
Yeah, I think, and I've had people tell me before, like, I just don't feel like it feels phony to like do a call to action. A
Mm,
lot of musicians, they're so worried about being phony. It's like such a debilitating fear because I think like it, and I might get like a little deep here, but I think
no,
like
that's fine.
we spend so much time refining and refining and refining. And a lot of what we do, like depending on if you're a classical musician or you're writing new music or whatever, but a lot of what we do is like what other people tell us to do. And like it'll be like play this rep, like learn this excerpt, whatever. And like we're repeating that over and over until we get to a point where it's like all about what we want to do. And
Mhm.
we kind of freeze because we're worried that we might not be as authentic as we really are hoping to be. And so many people have said to me before, like, I just don't feel like that's me. I can't ask a question at the end. Well, do it in a way that feels you. Like the whole point of this is that it is you. So there should be something like when you're having a conversation with somebody, you don't just end your sentence and hope that they care enough to respond. Like you want to say it in a way that feels like it's waiting for a response, or you want to say it in a way that invites them to participate in that conversation. So it doesn't have to feel phony, because if it feels phony, you're just not doing it right for you. You have to do it your way. So yeah, I think it's really important to have calls to action. They could be questions, they could be votes, they could be go to my stories and vote in the poll, they could be comment below if you have experienced XYZ. I mean, it doesn't have to be a question. It could be so many different things, but yeah, getting people involved is the whole point of social media. So you got
Right.
to do it in a way that feels right for you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love your examples of different calls to action.
Mhm.
I know for myself, need to be better about implementing more because I feel like sometimes feel like I get stuck, and then you get to the call to action part and you're just like, well, ask a question. But yeah, there's so many more
Yeah.
ways you could, get engagement.
Totally. And some people don't like to answer questions, or they might not have time or whatever, but they might want to. Maybe there's an expansion of what you're talking about in your stories and you talked about it in a video, and it's like, go check out my video. I'm talking more about this over there.
Hmm.
And you can get people more involved on stories, I feel like, because there's so many different options. You can have them vote, you can have them, do the slider, you can do the question box, there's so many different things now. So it's almost easier to just send them there sometimes because they just have to tap. They don't have to really like type up a whole thing. But yeah, there's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so since I have you on here, I want to pick your techie brain. And I get asked a lot by music teachers who either teach upper elementary or they teach. I know a lot of music teachers who teach all the way from K to 12 even. And a lot of times where music teachers get stuck is what do I do with my middle schoolers, upper elementary, or even in high school? They get stuck sometimes with feeling like they're in a rut or they want to do more with technology but don't know what or how. And
Hmm.
so I would love for you to give any, kind of advice. I know you've mentioned to me before about doing, like a website project or a podcast kind of project. How would they go about teaching that to their students if they're wanting to take on something like that?
Yes. So I recently wrote an article for Eastman School of Music's magazine. I can give you the link for that. And there's
Yeah.
a little bit more in that article, kind of expanding on how to incorporate technology, especially into arts entrepreneurship. Because I think that, like, if you want to teach your students more about like entrepreneurship, then you can do that in a way that's also technology infused. So there's more about it in that if you want to share that in the show notes.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, so but I think the main thing is like, so music technology is kind of like an unknown category, I feel like, because everybody sees it sort of differently. And maybe I just see it differently than most people. But for me, music technology isn't really about composing electronic music or, I mean, Finale and Sibelius, like all that. That's kind of like the basic definition of music technology. But there's so much more that you can do that is technology for musicians. And that's kind of how I see it. So I really focus more on teaching technology that musicians would find useful. So we talk in my classes. I have done podcast projects, I have done video projects, I've done website projects, and I've done found sound like compositions where they alter recordings of like squeaky chairs and things to make a composition. I've done Foley sound effects projects where they like I have clips from different movies or they can get a clip off YouTube and then they replace the sound totally in the clip. So there's all sorts of different things you can do that are technology projects for musicians. I mean, they're teaching musicians skills that
Mhm.
are useful in the workplace and like every musician in my opinion, should know how to edit a video. Every musician should know how to record something. It's just common knowledge and they all need it, whether it's for their demo reel or for an audition tape or whatever it is. So, some like practical tips I have some rubrics and things that are available and happy to share those and kind of give you links to those types of things. But I recommend teaching like the easiest things to do would be to teach an education video. So having your students teach a concept because you're a teacher, you probably know how to teach something. So
Right.
having them teach a concept like how to play a scale or how to warm up for your voice, or, I've had all sorts of different music related ones and teaching them just a couple of basic shots that you can do with a camera, like an interview shot, a wide shot, and just teaching them how to combine two different clips into a video. So like you might have a close up and you might have a person on camera and you want to flip flop between the two. It's very simple to do in iMovie. That's something that I do with my students and it just teaches them a skill. Editing video. I've had so many students after they finish my class come to me for additional help. Like, I need to make this video for a music therapy student association and can you help me do it? Or even they graduate and they are making videos in their jobs. And I've had a student call me before asking for help with that. So it's such a great skill for them. So yeah, I mean, there's so much more practical like rubrics and tips I can give as well, if that's helpful to you.
No, that was super helpful. I love this because I completely feel like when you're teaching music, and especially when the kids start getting older, it is the goal is to teach music. I think band and choir and general music classes are super important, obviously, and orchestra and anything like that. But on top of that, when you're teaching music, I feel like it's
important as well to teach about the different music careers. And part of that is when you're teaching about the music careers, music technology is a huge part of today. Any kind of technology is huge today.
Mhm.
It's all around us. I mean, as you know, and it's part of our world now. And so I think it's important. And I feel like a lot of music teachers get stuck by just fear of not knowing what to do, or I'm not technology savvy, so I can't teach this, or I don't even know how to get started, or I don't know the first thing to do. And so would you just suggest to them to just start somewhere? Or there's so many different trainings they can take, even like podcasts they can listen to, YouTube videos to watch. How would you suggest to someone who is listening to this and they want to do more with their students, but they just, like I said, feel stuck and don't know what to do?
Yeah. Well, they can talk to me. Um, so yeah, I'm happy
Yeah.
to offer that kind of help as well. I've worked a lot with I actually am going to visit a class at BW for actors, and they're learning about websites. So that teacher asked me for help, and so yeah, I've done all sorts of things like that. But I think like start small, and the easiest thing to do is either iMovie or just like a Weebly website. Weebly's a platform that's free, and it's drag and drop. It's like super simple to use. So, either having them build a website on Weebly or have them make a tutorial video. Those two things are very simple. And even for the tutorial video, you could do it all with your iPhone, and then when you put it onto iMovie, you really only need to know a handful of commands on iMovie to be able to edit it enough. And I mean, a lot of times the students just take over and they know how to do it, like, so,
Oh, yeah.
you don't even need to be able to answer other questions. You just need to know how to Google stuff, really. So if
So
there's an
true.
issue, look it up on Google. Google can help. So don't let your fear of technology paralyze you from trying to teach it to younger people, because there's so many resources even on the fly in the classroom that you can just be like, well, let's look that up together and find the
Right.
answer, because Google, like, learning how to Google is also a huge skill that
Mhm.
students need to learn. And that has happened to me so many times in my class. I mean, Finale and Sibelius do things to me constantly to trip me up. And I'm always Googling and finding things on forums about how to fix whatever issue with Grace Notes or something. So it happens to me too. So, I mean, you don't need to know everything to get started.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, and I love that you said that the students a lot of times will know what they're doing anyways, because I
Mhm.
mean, they just do. Kids in today's age that we live in can just pick up a cell phone and know how to do 100 things that I don't know how to do.
Yeah, and so it's your
Incredible.
job. Yeah, and I think, like, because of that, it's not your job to teach them necessarily the tech. It's your job to teach them how to synthesize and how to, you know, m- create messaging and all that. Like the big things. Those are the things they need help with.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love that so much. And I love that your advice about just start somewhere. Just don't be afraid if you're wondering where to start like you said, like with a podcasting lesson or some kind of website design lesson or something with music technology. Just, I feel like just pick something and go with it. And then maybe every year they can build upon that and do more and more and more. Do you agree with that? Or how would you suggest a teacher get started with, like, which one of those do you think would be the easiest way to get started, I guess is what I'm asking. Or do you think it's just up to them?
Well, I think they all are easy and difficult in their own terms, but I guess if I had to pick one, I would say maybe like the podcast or the video. Website, it could be a little tricky, like changing fonts, changing colors, like moving
Yeah.
things. But I don't think it's too difficult at all for anyone who's interested. So don't let that deter you. I always do like a simple 4-page website, just like landing page, about me, events page, contact page. I mean, it's not too in depth. But as far as like super simple, yeah, video or podcast. I mean, podcast couldn't be easier. You just need one microphone for that, pretty
Right.
much.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Megan, before we go, I would love for you to first of all tell everybody where they can find you and then offer any more advice you have for anybody listening today.
Yeah. So you can find me at Megan Kuhar. It's Megankuhar on Instagram. I have a a free group on Facebook about marketing for musicians. It's called the Fan Finder Forum. And so you can search Facebook for that. It's in the groups. And then I also have a podcast that I just launched called Fan Finder Podcast. So I talk a lot about this kind of thing on that. Yeah, those are the main places you can go.
Awesome. Well, and everybody, all her links she just mentioned and then the other ones she mentioned earlier in the episode will be in the show notes as well. So make sure you look for those. Well, Megan, thank you so much for being on. I am so excited for this episode, and I know that my listeners will get so much insight from what you shared.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, you asked for one more piece of advice. I would say it's just like be authentic about how you approach this and do it your way, because that's the whole entire point, is just making it so that you're out there and your personality's out there. So you have to do it in a way that's authentic to you. So just go forth and give it a shot.
That's awesome advice. I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much, girl.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, I would love for you to review the show and leave a rating on iTunes. To find out more about how I can help you gain momentum in your elementary music teaching career, head to thedomesticmusician.com, where you'll find free downloads, courses, the blog, and so much more. Continue teaching music and never doubt the impact you're making each and every day in the lives of your students.